We're in the heart of New Jersey at 1313 Mockingbird Lane.
The Munsters Koach wasn't just another TV car built for laughs. This Gothic hot rod masterpiece started as 3 completely different Model T Fords, welded together in ways that would horrify traditional hot rodders. George Barris created something that shouldn't exist, a hearse meets dragster nightmare that became more famous than the show itself. But why did they need a passenger casket that actually opened? How did a car designed to terrify children become worth over $200,000? And what's the truth behind the rumor that it was almost destroyed after just 1 season? These are 20 weird facts about the Munsters Koach that will blow your mind. Number 20. The 3 Model T Frankenstein build. George Barris didn't start with one vehicle when building the Munsters Koach. He literally Frankensteined 3 separate Model T Ford bodies together, cutting and welding them into something that had never existed before. This wasn't restoration or customization. This was automotive surgery on a scale that seemed impossible in 1964. Barris acquired the Model Ts from a junkyard in South Los Angeles that specialized in pre-war Ford parts. These weren't valuable antiques at the time, just old, obsolete cars worth $50 each. The first Model T donated its main chassis and frame rails, though even these required extensive modification and reinforcement. The original Model T frame was never designed to support the weight Barris planned to add. The second car provided the body sections that became the passenger compartment and the iconic extended rear end. The third Model T contributed the front cowl and hood sections, though Barris stretched and reshaped them beyond recognition. The cutting and welding took 2 whole weeks, with Barris personally supervising every joint. He used a technique called gas welding rather than modern electric arc welding because the thin vintage metal would warp under too much heat. The welds had to be perfect because this car would be driven on public roads for location filming, not just pushed around on a studio lot. Each body section was carefully measured and test-fitted multiple times before final welding. The result was a vehicle that measured 18 feet long, far longer than any single Model T ever produced. Traditional hot rodders were horrified at the destruction of 3 antique Fords, but Barris didn't care about preserving history. He cared about creating television magic, and the triple Model T combination gave him the dramatic proportions he needed. Number 19. The functioning casket that wasn't just a prop. The Koach's rear compartment featured an actual functioning casket, and it was far more elaborate than necessary for simple visual effect. Barris commissioned a custom mahogany casket from a real coffin manufacturer in Los Angeles, the same company that supplied mortuaries throughout Southern California. This wasn't a cheap prop made from plywood and paint. It was a genuine burial casket with brass handles, silk lining, and proper sealing mechanisms. The casket cost $900 in 1964, more than many production cars of the era. Why spend so much on something that would barely be seen on camera? Barris understood that authenticity translated through the lens, even if viewers couldn't articulate why. The casket was mounted on a custom platform that allowed it to slide out from the rear compartment on brass rails, similar to a hearse but more theatrical. The mechanism included stops and locks to prevent the casket from sliding out accidentally during driving. This was crucial because they actually drove the Koach on public roads with the casket installed. The interior silk lining was deep purple, matching the show's overall Gothic theme. Scripts occasionally called for characters to ride in the casket, which required additional safety modifications. The production added hidden padding and ventilation holes drilled from underneath, so actors wouldn't suffocate during takes. Butch Patrick, who played Eddie Munster, specifically requested that he never be filmed inside the casket because it genuinely frightened him. The casket's lid had to be removable rather than hinged to allow camera crews access for lighting setups. Between filming seasons, the casket was removed and stored separately to prevent theft, as real mahogany caskets retain significant resale value even when used for television production. Number 18. The impossible chain steering wheel. The Koach's steering wheel appears to be made from chains wrapped around a skeletal frame, but this visual trick created serious functional problems. The original concept called for actual heavy-gauge chain, which looked fantastic in photographs but proved completely impractical for actual driving. The real chain was too rough on drivers' hands, too heavy for precise control, and absorbed heat from the California sun, becoming painful to touch within minutes. Barris's solution was ingenious deception. He fabricated a core steering wheel from aluminum, then carefully wrapped it with lightweight decorative chain that was actually welded in place. This hybrid construction looked like a solid chain, but functioned like a normal wheel. The aluminum core connected to a standard steering column from a 1950 Ford truck, providing reliable mechanical linkage. However, even the decorative chain created problems. The uneven surface made it challenging to maintain a consistent grip during tight maneuvers. Fred Gwynne, who played Herman Munster, complained that his hands would slip during takes, requiring quick steering inputs. The production tried wrapping the chain sections with friction tape, where drivers' hands would grip, but this looked terrible on camera. Eventually, they settled on having drivers wear driving gloves for all scenes involving actual steering, which conveniently fit the Gothic aesthetic. The chain steering wheel became one of the Koach's most photographed features, appearing in countless promotional materials. Replica builders have struggled for decades to recreate the exact appearance. Some use a real chain welded to a core. Others use molded rubber that looks like a chain. None has perfectly matched the original's combination of dramatic appearance and minimal functionality. The steering wheel's diameter was also huge at 21 inches, requiring extra effort to turn at low speeds before power steering was added later. Number 17. The dual carburetor nightmare. Under the Koach's elaborately detailed hood sat a small block Chevy V8 topped with dual 4-barrel carburetors. But this powerful setup created constant headaches. Barris chose a 289 cubic inch Chevy engine because it was reliable, powerful, and parts were readily available. The dual quad carburetor setup looked menacing and fit the hot rod aesthetic, but it was completely overkill for a television car that rarely exceeded 30 miles per hour during filming. The carburetors were genuine Holley 4 barrels, the same units used on drag racing cars. Each carburetor had to be perfectly synchronized, or the engine would run rough, stumble during acceleration, or flood and stall. This synchronization process required expert tuning, and the settings would drift after just a few hours of operation. The production hired a dedicated mechanic whose sole job was maintaining the Koach's engine between takes. He would spend entire shooting days hunched over the engine bay, tweaking idle screws and float levels. The dual carburetors also consumed fuel at an alarming rate. The Koach's fuel tank held only 12 gallons, and the thirsty engine with poorly tuned carburetors would drain it in less than 50 miles. Production trucks carried spare fuel cans on location, because the Koach running dry became a regular occurrence. The engine's aggressive cam profile caused rough idling that looked great on camera, making the car seem alive and menacing, but made it nearly impossible to keep running at traffic lights during street filming. They solved this by having crew members follow in chase cars, ready to push start the Koach when it inevitably stalled. The elaborate chrome air cleaners covering the carburetors were purely decorative, providing almost no actual filtration. Dust and debris would enter the intake, requiring frequent carburetor rebuilds. Number 16. The organ pipe exhaust that almost killed production. The Koach's most distinctive feature was the row of organ pipes mounted where a normal car would have headers. But these weren't just cosmetic. Barris actually plumbed the exhaust through them, creating a visual and auditory spectacle that nearly destroyed the production. The pipes were genuine organ pipes sourced from a demolished church in Pasadena, cut to varying lengths to create a dramatic graduated appearance. Each pipe was 12 to 16 inches tall, and made from brass that would develop a beautiful patina over time. The exhaust routing required custom fabrication of a manifold that split the engine's exhaust into 8 separate streams, one for each pipe. This created massive back pressure that choked the engine's performance significantly. The Koach lost approximately 30% of its horsepower compared to running with conventional exhaust. More problematic was the noise level. 8 open exhaust pipes with no muffling created a sound that exceeded 120 decibels, louder than a jet engine at close range. Neighborhood filming became impossible because residents complained about the noise from blocks away. The production tried stuffing the pipes with steel wool to muffle the sound, but this caused backfiring and actually made the problem worse. Eventually, they fabricated removable baffles that could be inserted for street filming and removed for static display shots. The heat from exhaust traveling through brass pipes created another issue. The pipes would glow cherry red during extended running, and that heat radiated into the passenger compartment, making it unbearable for actors during California summers. They added heat shields behind the pipes, but this blocked the dramatic visual of seeing through them. The compromise was filming in early morning or late evening when temperatures were cooler, which limited production scheduling flexibility significantly. Number 15. The coffin tuck and roll upholstery.
Well, behind us we got Dragula. It's the 50.
The interior upholstery featured a custom tuck and roll pattern designed to resemble coffin padding, but creating this effect required techniques that upholstery shops had never attempted. Barris hired Tony Nancy, a legendary custom upholsterer from the Los Angeles hot rod scene, to create something that had never been done before. Nancy used deep burgundy naugahyde, a vinyl material that was durable enough for the abuse of daily filming. The pattern featured diamond-shaped tufts separated by deep channels, mimicking the quilted silk found in casket interiors. Each tuft was individually stuffed and sewn, a process that took over 100 hours of handwork. The channels between tufts were piped with black vinyl to create sharp definition and visual contrast. This coffin tuck pattern covered every interior surface, including the door panels, seat backs, and even the headliner. The attention to detail extended to custom-made buttons at each tuft intersection, which Nancy fabricated from chromed brass to match the car's exterior hardware. The deep tufting created an unexpected problem. The channels would collect dirt, dust, and debris that was nearly impossible to clean out. Between filming days, production assistants would spend hours vacuuming the interior with special, narrow attachments. The burgundy color also showed every fingerprint and smudge, requiring constant wiping down before filming. The naugahyde material was chosen over genuine leather because it was more durable and wouldn't crack under the intense heat of studio lighting. However, it also didn't breathe, making the interior uncomfortably hot and sticky during summer filming. Actors complained about the seats becoming slippery with sweat during long dialogue takes. The upholstery's theatrical appearance was perfect for television, but utterly impractical for actual use as a functional vehicle. Number 14. The three-wheel brake system. Danger 1. Here's a terrifying fact that production tried to keep quiet. The Munsters Koach originally had brakes on only 3 wheels, making it dangerously unpredictable to drive. When Barris fabricated the custom chassis by combining 3 Model Ts, he used a brake system cobbled together from incompatible parts. The front brakes came from a 1950 Ford truck, while the rear used Model T mechanical drums. These systems operated on different hydraulic pressures and responded at different rates. Worse, during initial construction, one rear brake was never properly connected. The asymmetric braking caused the car to pull violently to one side whenever the driver applied the brakes firmly. Stunt drivers quickly learned to brake gently and plan stops well in advance. Emergency stops were nearly impossible without the car swerving dangerously. This became critical during street filming when unexpected traffic required sudden stops. Several near accidents occurred before production mandated that chase vehicles would block traffic ahead of the Koach, eliminating the need for emergency braking. After a particularly close call where the Koach nearly hit a pedestrian, the production's insurance company demanded a full brake system overhaul. Barris installed a completely new hydraulic system using a master cylinder from a 1958 Buick, which had enough capacity to operate all 4 wheels properly. Even after the upgrade, the brakes remained problematic. The combination of the car's excessive weight, vintage brake technology, and tall, skinny tires meant stopping distances were alarmingly long. The production calculated that at 30 miles per hour, the Koach needed over 100 feet to stop, more than twice that of a conventional car. This limitation required careful planning of every driving scene to ensure adequate stopping space. Number 13. The missing 4th seat mystery. Count the seats in the Munsters Koach, and you'll find something odd. Despite being built to accommodate the entire Munster family, there are only 3 proper seats. The driver's seat up front, a bench seat in the middle, and the casket in back. But the show featured 5 family members plus Grandpa. Where did everyone sit? The answer reveals clever camera tricks and uncomfortable compromises. The middle bench seat was designed for 2 people, but 3 actors would squeeze together for wide shots. Yvonne DiCarlo and Al Lewis were relatively small, so they could fit alongside Fred Gwynne, but barely. For any scene requiring all family members in the car, they would film in shifts. Wide establishing shots showed the car driving with some family members. Close-ups inside the car were filmed separately, with actors positioned based on who was speaking. Pat Priest, who played Marilyn Munster, often sat on an apple box placed on the floor between seats. This position was invisible to cameras, but extremely uncomfortable during driving scenes. Butch Patrick sometimes rode standing up, holding onto the back of the driver's seat. Production photos show him in this precarious position during location shoots. The lack of proper seating became a running joke among the cast, with actors competing for the limited comfortable positions. Safety was a constant concern. With actors sitting in improvised positions, there were no seatbelts or proper protection. California law in 1964 didn't require seatbelts in custom vehicles, but the production's insurance company strongly suggested limiting the number of passengers. This led to many scenes being rewritten to explain why certain family members stayed home rather than all piling into the coach together. Number 12. The headlight candlestick modification. The Koach's headlights were designed to look like Gothic candelabras, but making them actually function as proper illumination created unique challenges. Barris started with genuine brass candelabras purchased from an antique store, each standing about 14 inches tall with multiple arms. These weren't reproductions or props. They were actual Victorian-era pieces worth several $100s each. The candelabra bases were cut off and welded to custom mounting brackets on the front fenders. The electrical wiring was routed through the hollow brass arms, an incredibly tedious process requiring special flexible wire that could bend through the curved passages. Each candelabra held 3 bulbs, but only the center bulb was a proper sealed beam headlight. The side bulbs were standard household bulbs that provided almost no useful illumination, purely decorative. This meant the Koach had effectively 2 headlights instead of the normal 4, significantly limiting nighttime visibility. The brass construction created another problem. Brass conducts electricity, and improper grounding could electrify the entire candelabra assembly. This happened twice during production, giving actors minor shocks when they touched the car's body near the headlights. Barris had to add rubber insulation and proper grounding straps to prevent electrocution. The candelabras also vibrated excessively during driving, causing the decorative bulbs to burn out frequently. Production kept replacement bulbs on hand, and crew members would check and replace them before each filming day. The weight of the brass candelabras, approximately 15 pounds each, created handling problems. The front end of the car already carried significant weight from the engine, and the heavy headlight assemblies made the steering even heavier. Power steering became a necessity rather than a luxury. Number 11. The Landau irons that served no purpose. The Koach featured elaborate Landau irons mounted on the rear quarter panels, those S-shaped chrome pieces traditionally found on hearses and formal cars. But unlike genuine Landau irons, which historically supported convertible tops, these served no function whatsoever. Barris added them purely for visual effect, to reinforce the hearse-like appearance. He sourced authentic Landau irons from a defunct hearse manufacturer in Detroit that had gone out of business in the 1950s. These weren't reproductions or simplified versions, they were genuine commercial-grade pieces with intricate scrollwork and heavy chrome plating. Each Landau iron weighed approximately 8 pounds, adding 16 pounds of dead weight to the rear of the car for zero functional benefit. The mounting process required drilling holes through the carefully fabricated bodywork, something Barris initially resisted because it weakened the structure. He eventually compromised by adding reinforcement plates behind the mounting points, but this added even more weight. The Landau irons extended outward from the body about 6 inches, creating a hazard during tight maneuvering. Stunt drivers scraped them on poles, walls, and other vehicles multiple times during the first season. The chrome plating would chip off, requiring frequent rechroming between filming blocks. This became expensive as professional chrome plating cost hundreds of dollars per piece in the 1960s. The purely decorative nature of the Landau irons bothered automotive purists who believed every element on a custom car should serve a purpose. Hot Rod magazines published articles criticizing Barris for this non-functional addition. But Barris understood that television audiences didn't care about functional purity. They wanted visual impact, and the Landau irons delivered precisely that, reinforcing the Gothic hearse aesthetic that made the Koach instantly recognizable even in black and white broadcasts. Number 10. The hand-carved wooden side panels. The Koach's side panels featured intricate hand-carved wooden details that weren't painted imitations, but actual carved wood. Barris commissioned a master woodcarver from Hollywood's prop department who specialized in period furniture and architectural details. The craftsman spent 6 weeks carving Gothic motifs, including skulls, bats, spider webs, and ornate scrollwork, into solid walnut panels. Each panel was roughly 2 feet long and 8 inches tall, positioned along the sides of the body between the wheels. The walnut was chosen because it carved cleanly and wouldn't split easily under the stress of vibration from driving. However, wood on a car exterior creates maintenance nightmares. The panels had to be sealed with multiple coats of marine varnish to protect them from the weather, but California's temperature swings caused the wood to expand and contract. This movement created hairline cracks in the varnish, allowing moisture to penetrate. During the first season, some panels showed early signs of edge rot. The production had to remove and reseal them multiple times. The carved details also collected dirt and grime that was nearly impossible to clean without damaging the delicate carving. Production assistants used soft brushes and compressed air to maintain them, but close-up shots still showed accumulated gunk in the deeper recesses. The wood panels added significant cost to the build, approximately $3,000, just for carving and installation. Modern replicas typically use resin castings rather than actual carved wood to avoid these maintenance issues. Number 9. The cobweb grille fabrication technique. The front grille appeared to be made from actual cobwebs cast in metal, and the effect required a technique that Barris invented specifically for this car. He couldn't simply bend metal into cobweb patterns because the shapes were too irregular and organic. Instead, he used a lost wax casting process typically reserved for jewelry making. First, he created actual cobweb patterns by stretching thick cotton thread across a frame and coating it with wax. This wax positive was then used to create a sand casting mold. Molten aluminum was poured into the mold, burning away the wax and thread, leaving behind a metal cobweb structure. The process required dozens of attempts because the delicate patterns often failed during casting, resulting in incomplete sections. Each successful casting produced only one small section of the grille. Barris needed 12 separate castings to complete the entire grille opening. These sections were then welded together and extensively ground smooth to hide the joints. The finished grille was incredibly fragile, despite being metal. The thin cobweb strands would bend or break if struck by anything more complicated than a bug. The production kept 3 complete spare grilles in storage because damage was inevitable. The aluminum couldn't be chrome-plated due to its porosity, so it was polished to a bright finish that required constant maintenance. Fingerprints would immediately tarnish the surface. Crew members were forbidden from touching the grille, but actors constantly leaned against it between takes. The cobweb grille became the coach's most technically challenging component, requiring more development time than any other single element. Number 8. The tire pressure deception. The Koach rolled on extremely tall, narrow tires that created a distinctive old-fashioned appearance, but these weren't period-correct tires at all. Barris used modern 1964 Firestone tires, commonly found on light trucks, sized 750 by 16. To make them look appropriately vintage, he ran them at dangerously low pressure, just 14 psi instead of the recommended 35. This low pressure made the sidewalls bulge outward, creating a balloon effect that mimicked 1920s tire technology. The visual trick worked perfectly on camera, but created serious handling problems. Underinflated tires generate excessive heat during driving, especially in California summers. The production experienced 3 tire failures during the first season when the rubber literally separated from the rim during filming. These blowouts were terrifying for drivers because the coach's steering was already heavy and unpredictable. Losing a tire made control nearly impossible. After the third incident, the insurance company mandated a minimum tire pressure of 22 psi, which was still well below safe levels but reduced failure risk. The compromise meant the tires didn't look quite as authentically vintage in close-ups. Sharp-eyed viewers can notice the difference between early episodes with very bulbous tires and later episodes where they appear slightly firmer. The underinflated tires also wore unevenly, requiring replacement every few months despite minimal mileage. Firestone eventually donated tires to the production after realizing the publicity value of their product appearing on a popular television show. Number 7. The emergency brake. Mounted on the exterior, unlike any standard vehicle, the Koach's emergency brake handle was mounted on the outside of the car. extending from the driver's side running board. This bizarre placement wasn't for visual effect, but was due to space constraints within the cramped interior. Barris couldn't find room for a conventional parking brake, lever, or pedal, given the elaborate interior appointments and the need to accommodate Fred Gwynn's 6'5" frame. The external brake lever was fabricated from chromed steel in an ornate design that matched the car's Gothic aesthetic, making it appear intentional rather than a compromise. The lever connected through the floorboard to a cable system operating the rear drum brakes. This arrangement worked mechanically, but created practical problems. Rain would rust the exposed mechanism, requiring constant lubrication and maintenance. The external placement also meant anyone walking past could accidentally release the brake or injure themselves on the protruding lever. The production added warning signs on the running board after a crew member gashed his leg during a night shoot. The lever's Gothic styling included a skull-shaped handle that actors would grab when entering or exiting the car, not realizing it was actually the parking brake. This caused several incidents where the vehicle would unexpectedly roll when the brake was accidentally released. Eventually, they added a secondary safety pin that locked the lever in place when parked. The external brake became a conversation piece at car shows, but represented one of Barris's rare functional design failures on the Koach. Number 6. The purple paint formula, secret. The Koach's distinctive purple paint wasn't a standard color from any manufacturer's catalog. Barris Custom mixed it specifically for the car, creating a formula that has never been exactly duplicated. He started with a deep plum base coat, then added metallic flake in varying sizes to create depth and sparkle under studio lights. The mixture included pearl essence that shifted between purple and burgundy, depending on viewing angle and lighting conditions. This color-shifting effect was intentional, making the car appear slightly different in every scene, depending on whether it was filmed in sunlight, shade, or under studio lights. The paint formula required 7 separate layers applied over 2 weeks. Base coat, metallic layer, pearl layer, candy purple, translucent coat, and 3 layers of clear coat for protection and depth. Each layer had to cure completely before the next application, making the process incredibly time-consuming. Barris mixed the paint himself in his shop, refusing to document the exact proportions. He wanted the Koach to remain unique, impossible to replicate perfectly. This secrecy has frustrated replica builders for decades. Every reproduction uses slightly different shades of purple because nobody knows Barris's exact formula. Some replicas appear too blue, others too red, none quite matching the original's distinctive hue. The paint's translucent layers made repairs nearly impossible. Any touch-up would show as a visible patch because matching the depth and color shift properties was impossible without repainting entire panels. Number 5. The bat-shaped hood, ornament controversy. The chrome bat hood ornament perched on the Koach's front end caused unexpected legal problems. Barris commissioned a local metal sculptor to create the bat, which measured 8 inches across with outstretched wings and bared fangs. The sculptor delivered a magnificent piece of automotive art, but there was a problem. The design bore striking similarity to a copyrighted comic book character's logo. DC Comics sent a cease and desist letter to Universal Studios, claiming the bat infringed on its Batman trademark. This seemed ridiculous since bats are generic animals, but DC's lawyers argued the specific styling and proportions were too similar. Universal's legal department panicked, fearing a lawsuit that could delay production. Barris was forced to modify the bat design, filing down the ears, changing the wing shape, and altering the facial features. The modified bat looked less menacing and more generic, disappointing Barris, who felt it compromised his artistic vision. However, sharp-eyed viewers noticed that early publicity photos show the original bat design, while the actual show featured the modified version. This discrepancy has made those early promotional materials particularly valuable to collectors. The bat ornament served another unexpected function. Its pointed wings became a convenient reference point for stunt drivers, helping them judge the car's width during tight maneuvers. Drivers would align the bat's wingtips with obstacles to avoid scraping the fenders. The ornament took multiple impacts during filming, requiring constant straightening and re-chroming. Barris eventually fabricated 3 identical bats, so replacement could happen quickly between shooting days without holding up production. Number 4. The wheelbase extension disaster. To achieve the Koach's dramatic stretched proportions, Barris extended the wheelbase to 133 inches, far longer than any Model T ever produced. This extension required cutting the frame rails and welding in additional sections, which created severe structural problems. The extended frame flexed and twisted during cornering, causing the body panels to crack and separate at the seams. The first test drive revealed the severity of the problem when a loud crack echoed through the shop as a major weld joint failed. Barris had to reinforce the entire frame with additional crossmembers and gussets, adding nearly 200 pounds of steel. Even with reinforcement, the Koach's chassis remained flexible by modern standards. Drivers could feel the car twisting over bumps and during hard cornering. This flexibility made the steering feel vague and disconnected, as inputs from the wheel took time to translate to the front wheels through the flexing frame. The wheelbase extension also created driveshaft problems. The stock driveshaft was far too short, requiring a custom two-piece shaft with a center support bearing. This bearing required frequent lubrication and replacement, becoming a regular maintenance headache. The long wheelbase made the Koach terrible to maneuver in tight spaces. The turning radius was enormous, making U-turns nearly impossible on standard streets. Location filming often required finding extra-wide intersections where the Koach could actually turn around. Parallel parking was utterly impossible, not that the show's scripts ever called for it. The extended wheelbase did create interior space for the elaborate seating arrangements, but at the cost of reliability and handling. Number 3. The television antenna modification. The Koach featured what appeared to be television antennas mounted on the rear fenders, but these weren't functional antennas at all. They were repurposed lighting rods from an old Victorian house, chosen for their ornate finials, which matched the car's Gothic aesthetic. Barris found them at an architectural salvage yard and immediately recognized their potential as decorative elements. Each lightning rod stood approximately 2 feet tall, with elaborate brass scrollwork and a pointed tip designed to attract lightning strikes. Mounting lightning rods on a car seemed darkly humorous given their actual purpose, but Barris never intended them to function. The rods were solid brass, extremely heavy, and their mounting required drilling through the rear fenders. This created potential leak points where water could enter the body, leading to rust. The production sealed these penetrations with rubber gaskets, but California rain still found its way inside. The lightning rods also created clearance problems in the studio's garage. The Koach was already tall, and the additional 2 feet of antenna height meant it wouldn't fit through standard garage doors. Crew members had to remove the rods before bringing the car inside, then reinstall them for filming the next day. This constant removal and reinstallation wore out the mounting threads, requiring repair multiple times per season. The pointed tips posed safety hazards to crew members working around the car. The sharp finials, one of which required stitches, poked at least 2 people. The production eventually filed down the points to make them safer, though this slightly reduced their visual impact. Number 2. The fuel tank. Hidden in the casket. Here's a secret most fans never discovered. The Koach's fuel tank wasn't located in a conventional position. Barris hid it inside the rear casket compartment, a decision that created both practical advantages and serious safety concerns. The original Model T fuel tanks couldn't provide adequate capacity for the thirsty Chevy V8 engine, and there was no good location under the custom chassis for a larger tank. The casket compartment provided protected space that would otherwise have been wasted. Barris fabricated a custom aluminum tank that fit around the casket's base, holding 18 gallons. This gave a decent range despite the engine's poor fuel economy. However, having gasoline stored in the passenger compartment violated every safety principle. Fumes could seep into the interior, creating both health hazards and explosion risks. Barris added extensive ventilation and a sealed filler cap vented to the exterior, but the setup remained dangerous. California's vehicle code technically prohibited fuel tanks in passenger areas, but custom show cars operated in a legal gray zone. The production's insurance company never discovered this fuel tank location, or they certainly would have demanded changes. The casket-mounted tank created fueling challenges. The filler neck extended through the car's side panel, hidden behind a decorative panel that looked like a carved wooden detail. Finding this filler location was difficult, and gas station attendants were often confused. Several times, attendants attempted to remove non-existent fuel caps from conventional locations before production crew pointed out the hidden filler. The tank's position also meant any fuel leak would drip directly into the casket compartment, creating fire hazards during filming. Remarkably, no fuel-related incidents occurred during the show's production run. Number 1. The Koach's near destruction and resurrection. After the Munsters was cancelled in 1968, the Koach nearly suffered the same fate as most television cars: destruction. Universal Studios had a policy of destroying custom vehicles to prevent unauthorized appearances that could dilute the brand or create liability issues. The Koach was scheduled for the crusher in 1969, already sitting in the studio's disposal yard awaiting final paperwork. George Barris heard about the impending destruction and frantically negotiated to buy back his creation. Universal initially refused, citing policy, but Barris persisted for weeks. He finally convinced executives to sell it by arguing he could display it at car shows as free publicity for potential syndication. Universal agreed to sell the Koach to Barris for $5,000, a fraction of the original $18,000 build cost. Barris immediately transported it to his North Hollywood shop, where it sat neglected for years while he focused on other projects. By the mid-70s, the Koach had deteriorated significantly. The paint was faded, the chrome pitted, the interior cracked, and the engine barely ran. Barris restored it in 1979 for the custom car show circuit, spending more than the original build cost to return it to pristine condition. The restored Koach became one of the most popular attractions at shows, earning appearance fees totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars. In 2011, Barris auctioned the Koach for $192,000, proving that what was nearly scrap metal had become a priceless piece of television history. The Munsters Koach proved that sometimes the craziest ideas create the most memorable results. From 3 junked Model Ts welded together to a nearly $200,000 collectible, this Gothic hot rod defied every rule of automotive design. George Barris didn't just build a TV car. He created a monster that refuses to die, still captivating fans over 60 years later.